What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And today, we're going to be reviewing Saw X.
Hello. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Eric's house, and today it's time to review the newest Saw movie. I haven't been making any videos on this movie or talking about it too much, even though I've reviewed the entire Saw series, because honestly, I didn't expect a whole lot out of it. Thought it'd just be another entry, but not as good. Probably just gonna have some traps, probably some crazy traps, sure. But is there going to be much story? Is there going to be anything really great? Probably not. Let's just be honest. Last couple have been really bad, even going back to the final chapter. So really the last 3 or 4 haven't been great. And the last one that had John Kramer and that actually had Tobin Bell, even though he didn't play a huge role, was Jigsaw. And that's my least favorite in the entire franchise. So I didn't have a whole lot of faith, I ain't gonna lie, but I, of course, was gonna check it out. And sure enough, holy crap, this movie was amazing. One of the better movies in the Saw franchise, and probably for sure the one with the most story and certainly the most character building, hands down. And the most with John Kramer as we follow his journey, trying to find a way to perhaps get this cancer in remission so he can finish his work, which is so important, right? But while doing that, I believe he goes down this path even further, which sort of explains why he becomes so hardcore and dedicated to fulfilling his work that we saw begin in the first Saw movie. So it does add more context to the entire franchise. It fits right in nicely, even though sure these events weren't really spoken about because nobody knew they happened until it was written, but it fits really well, so much better than I expected in between the first 2 Saw movies. So much to the point that when I got home, I wanted to continue the series, and I might just do that with Saw 2, because now I'm back in it. And that's really impressive for this movie. I didn't expect that. I thought I'd go see it. Okay, whatever. You know, a few good traps, review it, talk about the twist, whether or not it worked, and that would be about it. Instead, holy shit. I mean, it's just amazing. And it's crazy because it's so many years later. You would think, I mean, we're blessed that Tobin Bell's even healthy and alive to do the part. He's over 80 years old. And it's been since what, 2004, 14, 20, almost 20 years. So glad that he was able and willing to come back and do this one, because this has improved the franchise by a long shot, and it's gone up in ranking as one of my favorite horror franchises for sure. So the character development in this movie was amazing, not only for John Kramer, but for many of the other characters as well, many of which end up in traps, which makes it all the more meaningful, all the more impactful. We know who these people are. We know what they've done, and it ain't good. And most of us have been scammed before. Most of us have had our money stolen before in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's not something major like what is in the film, which I'll touch on a little later in spoilers. But most of us have been scammed before. Something stolen from us. I mean, I can talk about just recently. Had an extremely expensive baseball bat stolen from me at a batting practice, at a baseball event. We were all there. And everyone, you know, a lot of people brought their own bats, and my bat was stolen from me. I was so pissed. I wanted to find the people that stole my bat and do damage to them. Okay, it really pisses you off. Imagine, and that's from a calm, you know, generally nice, law-abiding person like me. Okay, not to brag, I'm just saying, like, I know John Kramer. Let's just put it that way, just more of a normal person. Imagine wronging John Kramer, but not just stealing his baseball bat, going next level with it, and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from this man, giving him false hope. Oh my goodness. So this movie actually makes it so John Kramer is a sympathetic character. I can't say that for any of the other movies, even though they have the interesting take of where he says, I never really killed anybody. I give them a choice. More on that later. More on that BS later. But it's okay that it's BS in the franchise for me because he's a flawed character. He has to tell himself that it's complete crap, but he has to tell himself that. And that's what made the franchise interesting. From the very first one, I was hooked on that first movie when I saw it. But in this film, we have more of a reason to root for John other than this crazy concept that he's giving these people a chance to become better people, giving them a chance to overcome their demons. Yeah, to live the rest of their life completely maimed. I'm sure that's going to do the trick. In his mind, that's the mission. Okay? And he has to take it over the top so that the movies have the gore and all the violence and that, so that they're really, truly horrific movies. So it's understandable, but still, we'll get into the details of why it's a bunch of crap. But in this movie, we have other reasons to root for John Kramer other than that fact. Because he actually has been wronged. In the first part of the movie, we get to see him interacting with people on a normal day-to-day basis. He doesn't attack normal, innocent people that he thinks are innocent, especially people who are trying to help him in his mind. So we see him interacting and actually taking a liking to certain people, and we take a liking to certain people. Come to find out later, maybe those people weren't such great people and end up in some serious traps. Amanda is back in this one. She plays a very important, integral role, and her character is much further developed. And when you see it, it explains some of her actions and some of her attitudes later in the Saw franchise, which is incredible. It's just incredible how this film elevates the Saw franchise. And we also get some villains in here, including one particularly nasty villain who is someone much easier to despise and hate than John Kramer. You really do root for John Kramer in this movie. And again, most of us who've had money stolen from us, most of us who've been wronged, who've been scammed, which is most of us, we look at this movie and we will root for John Kramer. Because we know it's just a movie. Okay, in a real life situation, of course, we're not going to do that to people. Okay, we're not going to necessarily wish this kind of torture and death upon somebody who steals something from us or scams us. But at the same time, it's nice to go see a fictionalized version of some people getting what they got coming to them when you treat people that way, especially when you do it to John Kramer. So you have a great setup. Love the first half of the movie. I was really feeling it, especially because I knew the carnage was coming. The horror was coming. So it wasn't boring at all because we got freaking 9 other movies. If you just want carnage, if you just want traps and all that, you got 9 other movies. We've been seeing this for 20 years. So to see some more calm scenes and John Kramer in his regular day-to-day life was really fun, was really thrilling, and I really enjoyed it the first half of the movie. And you knew something was going to go wrong, and that moment is absolutely insane. And there are twists throughout. Not just one big dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, oh shit, like most of the Saw movies. This one has multiple twists as you go along. There's a couple of points like, is this movie wrapping up already? I look at my clock, let's only watch, it's only been like 45 minutes. So it's like multiple times there's some really cool revelations that you don't really know that explain stuff, and flashbacks that explain, and then the movie continues and you're like, that's not even the big one yet. And when the big one comes, it's pretty big. And it's not that predictable. You don't really know. And another really interesting thing about this movie, because some of the other movies, there'll be complaints, and I've complained like, okay, so everything for this plan had to work so perfectly. That's not how life works. You can make a simple plan, a simple trap, someone falls into it and it works. But when you make it really complex and all these steps have to happen and the person has to do everything exactly as you plan, when you plan, like it's not going to work out as perfect as it does in these movies sometimes. But in this one, it actually doesn't work out. There are a few things that go wrong for John Kramer and his plan. So even that is not going to always work out perfectly. So it's much more realistic from that aspect. And all in all, just a really enjoyable movie. I'll get into some of the flaws here and the negatives before I get into spoilers. There's really not a whole lot. This is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The major flaw for me has to be some of the traps I'll talk about in spoilers are insanely ridiculous and unsurvivable. Literally unsurvivable. And I actually got pissed off on some of these traps because they're so... the person in the trap performed so well, in my opinion, and still failed, like, you got to be kidding me. I'm not saying which ones failed, which ones were successful. Some fail, some don't, which is another cool thing. You never really know. Some of the movies, like, okay, they're going to go to the last second and they're going to die. And this one, I'm wondering, are they going to make it or not? Because I can't tell. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But what I will say is some of them really are not only impossible, but what they have to do, what they're asked to do, and sometimes what they do is literally, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm sorry, some of these things are not possible. You can't do that. You'll die before you get to that point, or you'll pass out. You cannot physically do that to yourself. And if you do, you're going to be screaming in even worse, much worse agony than they show. These actors, they're screaming in pain like, no. You do what I scream like they're screaming when I stub a toe. Okay, I scream like they're screaming when I bump my head, which I just did the other day, and I got 6 staples right along my head, okay? So I know. Doing some of the things that they're doing, I couldn't physically do it. And if I was in one of those traps, I promise you, I would have to just sit back and be like, fuck it. I'm dead. Just gather my thoughts and wait for the timer to run out, because I ain't doing that. That just ain't happening. It just is not happening. So I question some of John's tactics here, but at the same time, he is emotionally infuriated at these mother effers. So it stands to reason he is going beyond his normal approach. So I kind of understand it, because I can understand he would make the traps so ridiculous and so insane because he's pissed. What I don't get is how they got so far, how they were able, how the people in the traps even did what they did in this movie, because it seems impossible. And I'll touch on more of that in spoilers. But at the end of the day, this movie, when I compare it to the rest of the franchise, look, I don't know if any Saw movies can be considered a masterpiece, but I have to say this movie is definitely about as close as you can get, because even though it shouldn't be that hard to come up with a movie like this and to write a movie like this for filmmakers and for screenwriters, but obviously it is, because we haven't gotten it for many, many years. Most Saw films have sucked for many years. So I have to give credit where credit is due. And this movie is freaking awesome. Go see this movie. And that's it for my non-spoiler review. And you know what? I think I'll go ahead and make a second video on the spoilers. But this is my non-spoiler review for Saw X. And I'll have a link here at the end for the spoiler if you're interested, as soon as it's ready. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.